7. Rules applicable only with the automatic train control or territory. Automatic train control territory is specified with a special instruction. Engine must not be with the automatic train control territory. Is not equipped with the automatic train control system unless otherwise authorized by special instruction for the train dispatcher. Taking charge of the engine. Equip the automatic train control territories. Ensure the territory engineers will know that automatic train control is cut in and sealed and locked if the engine is equipped. The following devices are sealed with the engines equipped with mechanical seal, speed indicator, cable, the speed indicator, cable, the high speed without whistle, cutout, cock. Cut in, cut out requirements of the automatic train control systems in part with the entirety of the most to be cut out with the automatic train control territories and left the train dispatcher grants some permission. Failure with the automatic train control system prevent the train moving in a restricted speed and unable to recover over the air, and crews are unable to immediately contact the train dispatcher. The train dispatcher must notify us when the practical notification must include the cab signals are operative. Train dispatcher may grant permission to the crew member to cut out with the automatic train control system when it is failed before granting permission to the crew to cut out with the automatic train control. Train dispatcher must determine the cab signal are operative for the required movement again with the current of the traffic at speed with above restricted speed. Cut in of the automatic track control, cut out with the automatic track control, turn on with the automatic track control system, acknowledge the acknowledgement of the horn sounds, cut in the automatic track control actuator and sealer lock, cut out with the cut in of the automatic track control, turn on automatic control train control, acknowledge with the acknowledgement of horn sound with the cut in the automatic train control actuator, seal and lock, cut out automatic train control, cut out with automatic train control sealer, unlock the cut out automatic track control actuator, turn off power automatic track control system. Automatic track control is cut out with the due to the final and failure in the route. The next stop the engineer must cut out the automatic track control. Determine that the operable train dispatcher must notify the automatic track control. Gain operative and continue with the fail with the discharge cab signal operative of the previously cut out. Departure test requirement. The departure test is required before entering the automatic track control territory or when automatic track control is cut out after being cut out within route with the automatic traffic control territory. Energized test loop. The engine is standing on the energized test loop. The cab signal should display with a clear aspect. Test loop de-energized with the engine is moved off the test loop. The aspect will change with the restriction. Acknowledgement horn will sound down. Do not acknowledge the horn. Not move the brake valve handle. The penalty application should occur within 80 seconds of the recovery of the air. When the horn sounded, give it acknowledge to prevent the penalty application of the recovery of the air after the ATC brake application acknowledgement of the horn and alarm of the move of the brake handle suppression until the automatic control system light has gone out. Brakes may have to be released. Receive with the both ends when the engine and the automatic track control. Receive with the both ends with the standing on the engineer's energized track with the cable signal that should be displayed with clear. Play for the reverser with the reverse position. The cab signal will change with the restricting of the acknowledgement of the horn will sound. Acknowledge of the horn. Do not move the brake valve handle. Brake application should occur within 8 seconds. Recover the air when the horn sounds again with acknowledge of the prevent brake application. De-energized traffic and energized standing with the de-energized track. Release the brake. Do not acknowledge with the acknowledgeable horn. A brake penalty application should occur within 8 seconds to recover the air when the horn sound again with acknowledgement prevent penalty brake application. Departure of the test reporting the automatic train control, automatic train system test that must be retained within 92 days, must be played with the engine cab, mechanical department, and pull over the form and test on one part of the form must be retained in the test location in 92 days. Others must be placed and inspected over the engine cab at the points where the engineer is required with the automatic train automatic train system departure test. The engineer must complete with the form, plate for the inspector, hold at the end of the engine, notify the train dispatcher. Crew members are not to remove the form unless specifically instructed to do so. The train dispatcher, unless instructed otherwise, must record the date, the time, the location, engine for the number, and the name of the engineer. High speed setting. The cab signal is displayed with a clear aspect with the train speed exceed with the high speed setting with a high speed whistle with a sound with a continuously with a requirement of suppression brake application within 6 seconds to prevent penalty application over 40 miles an hour with a high speed whistle will sound with the wind speed with more than 40 miles per hour with the end when the cab signal with the train with the restriction aspect. Move the brake valve handles to suppression within 6 seconds to prevent penalty application brake application. When speed reduced to less than 40 miles an hour, the high speed whistle will stop with the acknowledgement horn will sound. Acknowledge this horn if capable of continuing the displaying restricting speed must immediately be reproduced. Reducing restricted speed. Restricted speed did not reach within 70 seconds after the acknowledging horn was acknowledged. Penalty brake application will occur unless the other brake valve handle is in suppression under 40 miles an hour. Acknowledgeable horn will sound with the cab signal chain with the clear with the restricting when the clear when the speed is under 40 miles an hour. Acknowledgeable the horn within 6 seconds will prevent the penalty brake application. If the cab signal continues to display with the restricting train speed, must be immediately reduced to the restricted speed. With the restricted speed not reached within 70 seconds after the acknowledging of the horn was acknowledged, a penalty brake application will occur unless the brake valve handle is in the suppression. Restriction of the cab signal. The cab signal change from clear to restriction aspect of the train exceeded restricted speed, but must immediately reduce this restricted speed while the cab signal continues to display with the restricted aspect of the acknowledgement of the horn will sound alert. The crew members of the restriction with the speed of the approaching with the restricting covering over the speed setting. The load speed alarm will sound to alert the crew members that the speed must be reduced. Conforming with a block signal. Cab signal indicates that do not supersede the indication display with the block interlocking signal with the most restrictive allowed with the cab signal indication must be complied. However, when the cab signal will change with the restricted clear after having passed the block with the interlocking signal with the train, make an immediate comply with the cab signal indication. Except with the cab signal capable of displaying the diverging route aspect of the initial movement of the cab signal chain with the restricted clear after the engine passes with the signal with the governs approach the diverging route of the train must approach the next signal at the speed of the prescribed for the most restricted route with the location to the next signal is visible. Note when the cab signal cycles the clear restriction immediately back to the clear of the train may continue the normal speed. Approaching diverging route with the cab change with the restricting clear of the engine passes the signal and display with the approach of the more restricting indicator for the next cab signal with the display with the indication of the diverging route of the train must approach for the next signal and speed is described with the most restrictive route at the location of the signal and see the ends to display an indication for the more favorable route with the speed of the route governs. The automatic train control failure cut out of the en route. When any part of the automatic train cut out system is cut out with the en route before automatic block is established in advance of the train, cab signals that operate the moment of the entirely continuous block signal territory perceived at not exceeding 40 miles an hour. If cab signals are not operative movement is outside of the continuous block signal and proceed at the restricted speed. After an absolute block is established in advance of the train, the cab signals the operative movement will entirely with the continuous block signal territory perceived in accordance with the signal indication not exceeding 79 miles an hour. If the cab signals are not operative to move in the outside of the continuous block signal territory, passenger train may not exceed 59 miles an hour. Freight trains may not exceed 49 miles an hour. Before an absolute block in advance of the movement is established, the automatic train control territory of the train dispatcher may determine the cab signal is operative for the absolute block in advance of the movement of the entirety of the territory continuous fixed block signal. A cab signal operative with the absolute block in advance movement with the entire entry with a continuous block signal and territory with the train dispatcher may establish with the absolute block in advance of the movement as provided in Rule 11.1, establishing the absolute block 11.2 signal with indication absolute block applied with the cab signal chain with the restriction the train must stop. The cab signals are inoperative at any part of the absolute block of advance of the movement. It will be outside of the continuous block signal territory for the train dispatcher must not establish an absolute block in advance of the movement until determine the no train with the engine. Occupy the limited ahead of the train being given with the absolute block of advance movement will occupy the limits ahead of the train being given with the absolute in advance of the movement of the Rule 9.15 track permanent Rule N3 track and time. Establishing an absolute block will not initiate joint. Speed indicator with the automatic train control with an operative with the inaccurate speed indicator with the required prescribed the Rule 1.3 with the accuracy with the speed indicator in consider the automatic train control failure 7.7 the automatic train control failure cut out and en route when applies automatic train control motion light with the motion light with the on when speed exceeds 6 miles an hour above the seat in accordance with the cab signal indication for the not exceed 40 miles an hour. Rule 7.7 the automatic train control failure cut out and route and applies. Automatic indicator for the automatic indicator does not sound with the cab signal chain, but the more restrictive is the indication continue with the sound from the cab signal chain with the acknowledged if it is considered an automatic track control failure. Rule 17.7 the automatic track controller cut out en route implies improper display. The cab signal display with the clear when it should display with the restriction due to the open switch occupied block other condition the train must stop and warn other train with the radio exact location status of the train. Contact train dispatcher be governed with his or instruction with the train dispatcher give the permission to proceed with the train must proceed with the restricted speed until the train dispatcher establishes an absolute block in advance movement. 18 and 19 are sections are reserved and glossary abbreviations, then bullet definitions, and then index. This has been a reading of the General Code of Operating and Rules. 7th edition, October 1st, in 2015. It's got a lot of adopted by a lot of railroads, actually, from A to Z. And that is the conclusion of today's video.